And so I want to introduce now another vital voice that we have, someone who is always ready for a Boston battle, but who deeply understands the Philadelphia principles and has spent so much time over the last years inviting us to engage in a dialogue, even if it's only in your head as you're listening on the radio or on TV. He's challenging us to think deeper, to catch the Philadelphia vision, and to move the country forward. So please welcome to Utah, Glenn Beck.
Well, hello, Utah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please be seated. I'm kidding, not you guys. I have to start with an apology. I find myself in a very awkward situation because I've never endorsed anybody ever before, mainly because most of my career nobody ever asked for my endorsement. But I never endorsed anybody before, and everybody thinks that the first man that I ever endorsed was Ted Cruz. But I actually gave my word off the air to Mike Lee, the first. These two men are exceptional, are truly exceptional. Let me start with this. Why are we all here today? For Mike Cruz. Yeah, that's what I got out of that. We're not here for, quite honestly, that's why rallies are being held for Donald Trump, because those people are showing up for an individual. I know these two men and all of us here are not here for them. We are here for the Constitution of the United States of America. This is not a talent show. This is the presidency and the US Senate. I want to speak to you about something that may be controversial. Well, that's what I do. And it's not something that I have said while I've been out for Ted and now with Mike, but it's something that this crowd needs to hear. It's something that Utah needs to hear. The body of the priesthood is known to stand up when the Constitution hangs by a thread. I am a convert. Hold on. I am a convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 2000. What attracted me was not only the truth of the message, but also the people like President Lee and President Benson, who knew exactly who we were as a country. I joined many times. What held me through was the prophecy that the Constitution will hang by a thread. And this people would remember what our founders did. It is our responsibility to stand for the Constitution. There are people of many faiths all around the country. There are many people of many faiths, good friends of mine, that are standing with the Constitution. But there are also many Christians who are failing in their duty. This Constitution, the Philadelphia moment, was a God moment. And we all know that. It was a God moment. George Washington is one of the most exceptional men. He was called the indispensable man for a reason. If you took George Washington out of the mix, it would have fallen apart. And he was a servant his whole life. From the time that he was 14 years old, he wanted to join the Royal Navy. Thank goodness he didn't. He didn't because his mother, he took his steamer trunk up onto the deck of the ship, and he joined the Navy. And his mother was down at the bottom of the gangplank. She was a very dramatic woman. She was, oh, no, George, no, please, don't leave me. And I can imagine that the sailors were all like, dude, I can see why you want to go to the ocean. Wow. But she made a big scene. And he picked his steamer trunk up, and he went down the gangplank, and he set it down next to her, and he said these words, Mother, if this is where you require me, by your side I shall remain. He was a servant his whole life, and he gave up the things he wanted to do. He didn't want to be the general. He tried to talk them out of it. Nobody liked him. Everybody hated him. Until he crossed the Delaware, he lost everything. He had 20,000 people in the summer that were fighting under his command. By the time he got to the Delaware, he had 2,000. He didn't want the job. He wasn't quite honestly good at the job. What he was good at was listening to the Lord. Finally, when it comes to the Articles of Confederation in the Philadelphia moment, he doesn't want to go to Philadelphia. His whole life, all he wanted to be was a farmer. And so, he goes back to Mount Vernon after the war is won. He certainly doesn't want to be the president of the United States. And he begins to farm his own land. And in the middle of the night on a rainy evening, a horse comes through the gates of Mount Vernon. And a man gets off the horse and raps on the front door. And a George Washington appears and opens the door. And it is a man representing the Congress. And he says, General, we need you in Philadelphia. The Articles of Confederation are too weak. It's falling apart. We can't get anybody to come into the same room. The states won't even talk to each other anymore. And nobody wants a new constitution. We need you in Philadelphia. You're the indispensable man. You're the only man that will bring everyone together. And George Washington said something that was very unlike him. A servant his whole life. But now, at 55, he wanted his way. And he looked at the man at the front door and he said, quote, have I not yet done enough for my country? And slammed the door. In my mind's eye, I see George Washington walking to the banister in the hallway, putting his hand and doing the same thing that all of us do when we know the right thing and we're arguing with the Lord. And he got on that horse and he rode to Philadelphia that night. Because I believe God said something to him along the lines of, no, sir, you haven't done enough for your country yet. Your service of your country never stops. And by the way, do you think Thomas Jefferson just came up with the words when in the course of human events? That all men are created equal and endowed by me, their creator, with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Do you think he just came up with those words? No, sir. He was taking dictation from me. And by the way, that line says, among these rights, meaning there are more that need to be enumerated. So your job is not done. And by the way, these rights aren't for you. They're not even for your children. They're for generations yet to come. They'll do things that you can't even imagine. Someone will take that electricity that Ben Franklin just had at the end of a kite and run it through the houses, and you'll have lights at night. You'll have television where you'll be able to see amazing things all around the world. Because of these rights, someday a man will go and walk on the face of the moon. So no, sir. No, there's a lot of work that I want done. Get on the horse. George Washington said very little at the Constitutional Convention. Towards the end, there was an argument. The states couldn't come together. And one state in particular wanted pork. They wanted just what Congress does now. I need some extra pork. You need to give me some freebies. What a surprise, that state was New York. Not a lot has changed. And Ben Franklin, 88 years old, so frail, in so much pain, he was actually on opium at the time. in so much pain, even on opium, they had to carry him gently, a chair with pillows, because the cobblestone was too painful for him. It would shatter all the way up his body. And he turned as the argument on the floor went on. He said, "Guys, stop it. Stop it. We're not here. This isn't about you. You know you've been here the whole time. You know we did not win against the British. God won against the British. We just happened to be there to watch it. You have seen the whole finger, hand, and arm of God bring this country together. We cannot spoil it now by being greedy, by being selfish, by giving into our own ego." They continued to argue until finally the room fell silent as George Washington, who was sitting at the head, shifted in his seat and then stood. And all eyes fell to him. And he said these words, "Gentlemen, let us raise a standard to which the wise and the honest can repair. The event is in the hand of God." Now that's a lot of colonial speak, but what does it mean? Let us raise a standard. Let us do this document, this one thing. Out of our entire life, we were born for this moment. Let us do this one thing perfect. Let us do it exactly the way God has asked us to do it. And we will raise that standard for the whole world to see, to which the wise and the honest can repair. To which the wise and the honest can repair. Repair doesn't mean fix. It means to run to and take shelter. You see, he knew there would be a time they would raise this standard, and there would be a time when America would lose her way, where America wouldn't even recognize the rights in the Constitution anymore, where the Constitution would hang by a thread. He saw those times, and he knew if they did this one moment right, and they held it up for the world to see, not only would it change all of the world, but it would also provide the opportunity for the wise and the honest, when they lost their way and the country was almost over, the wise and the honest would run to the Constitution and take shelter at the Constitution. I come to you today not as a talk show host, but as a dad, as a fellow citizen. The first time I spoke to Mike Lee, he was in the canyons, and he pulled over his car, called and he said to his wife, "I think it's Glenn Beck." And I think you will say we had the oddest conversation, one of the oddest conversations in your life. Yes. He was like, "Pull over, honey, this is getting weird." And the first question I asked him was, "How is your soul?" I said, "Mike, America doesn't need another weasel. We don't need another guy to go in and then tell me that, well, I've been here for 30 years, so I know how it works." I didn't mention any names, you did. We need somebody who understands the Constitution, and we talked about his family heritage. And I wanted to know, is this a guy who skated on his family heritage? Is this a guy who actually learned at the feet of giants? I have watched Mike Lee. I have seen this man. Ted's out front. This guy's in the back, kind of like the man behind the curtain pulling on the... Pay no attention to Mike Lee pulling all of the... This man's brain of getting us back on course is worth its weight in gold. And I want you to know, he's not going to be in the Senate for 30 years because someday America will be sober enough to make him Chief Justice Mike Lee. Makes him uncomfortable, I know. Another uncomfortable moment for Ted Cruz. He was in my studios. And man, he talks a good game. I mean, it was conservative erotica coming out of his mouth. It was like, oh, tell me more, big boy. Oh, yeah. Talk to me about that Constitution, Ted. Yes. But I called him into my office afterwards, and Ted will tell you, I looked him in the eye and said, you talk a good game, but I've seen a lot of people like you. And if you, because I voted for him in Texas. And I said, if you're not exactly what you say you are, quote, I'm gonna be your worst nightmare. I don't have any friends in Washington except these two. And I wear that as a badge of honor. But I've seen this man and this man, and you know it to be true. The powers that are in control of New York and Washington are unbelievable. The gates of hell have opened up on these guys, and they take it in the front. They take it from their so-called friends. They get kicked in the head by the media. These guys, they have tried to destroy them for 4 years, and yet they stand. Do you know why? Because they know what their principles are, and they stand there and they will not move. I want to tell you this. No, thank you. I want to tell you this. Another thing I shouldn't say, but I'm going to. I believe in the Book of Mormon. I don't know about you guys, but I believe in the Book of Mormon. And that was written for a time to tell people what it would look like when it was all coming undone. So his people who are called by his name could humble themselves and he would heal our land. I believe in that. The question is, do you believe in that? Prepare for a time of miracles. I know you have prayed about these people and I have prayed about these men. But I want to leave you with this. I'm putting my children, I get nothing from these guys. He's not going to have me on the cabinet. And I don't understand half this crap he's saying to me all the time. So I get nothing from these guys. What I get and what you get is freedom. Freedom to chart my own course to happiness. The president does not say to protect and defend, doesn't say to protect and defend the rich or the poor, to make sure everybody has health care. He says to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and use that Constitution to get the government out of our way so the people can make it great. I want to leave you with this. You go out Tuesday. It is critical to send a very strong message to the rest of the world. You stand with the Constitution and you pull the lever for Mike and you pull the lever for Ted because it's critical. And let me tell you this is the role you play. I testify to you right now, the role you play. You are fulfilling the prophecy of George Washington. when he stood at the Constitution Convention at that Philadelphia moment and he said, let's raise a standard to which the wise and the honest will run to. That is you. That is your responsibility. Vote for Mike Lee and Ted Cruz. God bless you.